Story hunting. I want to tell you a story. And this is a story about a new podcaster named Bob. And he's getting ready to publish his new podcast. Now, Bob is very excited about podcasting. He watches a bunch of videos, he reads everything on social media, maybe even buys a book. But Bob cannot wait to start podcasting. So he immediately runs out and buys a microphone. And then he plugs it in and starts recording. Yay, Bob. Really excited about Bob. Bob's really getting on it. So he goes on and he gets episode 1 out. It's so cool that he's out there. And Bob gets episode 1 out and he feels great. And he's off to a great start. But Bob didn't plan anything. He didn't really do any research. He's just winging it because, hey, it's podcasting thing, right? It's just a microphone. You don't need anything else. And so he moves forward with episodes 2, 3, 5, 10, no rhyme, no reason. And before you know it, here comes trouble. Because it starts to get harder for Bob. And with every next episode, he's struggling with what to do next or what new topic to come up with. And he's getting very few downloads. He's getting no emails. He's getting zero feedback. And he starts to ask himself, do I really want to do this podcasting thing? It's a lot more work than I thought it would be. And I'm kind of don't know what to do next. And so as it gets more and more difficult, Bob's motivation starts to go. And then something really goes wrong. Bob doesn't know how to keep his ideas coming. And this is when he hits episode 13. And this is where he hits the messy middle. Now, Bob's lack of feedback and download run headfirst into his waning motivation. And like a raging beast, the messy middle attacks when you are at your lowest point. And with nothing solid to inspire him, Bob decides to push back a day. And then he misses a week. And then a month. And before you know it, Bob is pod faded. Now, is this the end of Bob? Before long, after 6 months, Bob really isn't a pod fader anymore. Now he's pod wrecked. And when Bob has gone to there, his podcast is really kind of a goner. And you could kind of say, well, it's kind of like the Lion King, Hakuna Matata, no worries, the circle of life, or like we like to say, the circle of podcast life. But is there a better way? Howdy, I'm Kyle Bondo. I'm the chief creative of GagglePod, and I'm the co-founder of GagglePod with my best friend, Tim Bryan. And together we co-host a show called Podwrecked, where we talk about these things, about is there better ways? And if you like my slides, by all means, please go to gagglepod.com/story2020. I got them all there, a bunch of other stuff, and you're free to have it all. But let's talk a little more about not being like Bob. Poor Bob. And of course, I'd like to say that no mooses were harmed during the making of this presentation. But we're talking about Bob's starting his podcast in the middle, because he didn't do any preparation or planning. And when we get stuck and things get hard, we don't know what comes next. So what do? Well, usually we quit. So I'm going to teach you 7 good principles of content design. So hopefully you keep you going when the messy middle bear comes for you. And our guide, of course, because it's not GagglePod unless I create a new fake podcast. My fake podcast for this presentation is called Anonymous, the Outdoor Survival Gone Wrong. And we're going to use this as our guide to see how each one of these principles work. Now, principle number 1, you have to know your why. You have to know what direction and perspective you have. And in a past presentation, I talked about how to create a why. But there's 2 key things I want you to know about your why right now, because we have to know who are we talking to. Now, with Anonymous, really, is it all outdoor recreation lovers? Kinda. Those are like day packers and hikers, maybe not. Or is it outdoor enthusiasts, the hardcore people, campers, sportsmen? Nah, not really. Again, we're really kind of looking at outdoor survivalists. These are the people who like sit at home and watch Alone or Naked and Afraid. These are our people, our crazy bird and bunny nut people that go off the grid with a toothpick and some duct tape, and they create a life in the Arctic Circle. So we can use this to plug this into our why statement. Now, for a why statement for Anonymous, it's really me talking about wilderness survival stories for outdoor survivalists who like to hear about others who escaped disaster. It's very, very niche, very direct, but these pieces will come very handy in a few minutes. Now, when we start down the road of creating content, we first need good sources. And what do we need to do? We need to know, where is our audience talking and living online, because the internet is connecting everybody. So we have to go online and try to find out where we can find these people. Now, I asked 6 questions. These can be any 6 questions, but I like these ones because these kind of get to the core piece, and they don't have to be your 6 questions, but they're mine. And I say, what do people who are in outdoor survival for this fake podcast love, hate, read, buy? Where do they go? What do they want? And in doing that, I create keywords. I know my content very well, so I know what my people are thinking. I know what keywords they're actually looking for. So I create 20 keywords. And it doesn't have to be, it can be anything, because you can do this exercise over and over again and come up with different answers. By going through each one of these keywords, I create pretty much my map to search. And I do this 3 times. And the first time I do this with my keywords directly, and I use Google, because why not Google? There's a couple other tools you can use. I use Google because, hey, it's easy. And a lot of times when you put something into Google, it gives you all sorts of recommendations of other keywords you didn't even know were connected. And that's pretty handy. So the first time you do the keywords by yourself. The second time you do the keywords by connecting your who your audience is, with that keyword. And the third time you do your what. What is this podcast about, with your keywords? And what you're going to have is a bunch of websites come up in search queues. And your goal is to find 5 websites within that search, go several pages deep to find 5 that look promising. You don't have to go deep into them, just look promising about your topic, and find 5 for each one of those searches. Now, if you think about it, that's 20 keywords plus 20 target audience keywords plus 20 direction keywords. That's 60 search sessions. And 60 search sessions with 5 websites is 300 websites. That's a lot of websites. Okay. The next, you have to make sure, are they any good? So we're going to lurk with a purpose. We're going to start observing those sources in their natural habitat. We're going to see what is going on those sources. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they good? Are they great? So we're going to dig into there and start walking those sources and start to note things like the level of activity. When's the last time they had the dates of things they posted, the number of articles they posted, the number of posts they actually have. What are they talking about? What topics do they stick to? Do they bounce around? What's the number of times a certain topic comes up? And then what we're going to do is take notes. We're going to write down active issues, complaints, controversies, problems, interesting points, whatever you find interesting. Now, I'm tool agnostic, but I use Google Sheets and Evernote. That's just my tools, but you could use anything. You use a piece of paper and write down everything you see from these websites. When you're thinking 300 websites, you should have a pretty good list. In fact, your list should be really, really intense of sources you kind of come through. You're going to find some good ones and some bad ones, but your goal is to find out what's the junk. Weed out the ones as your second time through the thing. So the first time, are they interesting? Second time, what's garbage? Remove the dead ones, remove the weak ones, and then search for better ones. You may find a good site that's been dead since 2006, and maybe you find a better source in another website that you didn't know of. And you're going to whittle that down to 20 good sources that you're going to use continuously for the next year to go back to and replenish your bucket of stuff. Now you have this big pile of notes. How many notes do you have? Well, if you've been taking notes, 300 websites, 3 to 5 interesting points per site, that's about 900 to 1,500 notes, clips, snippets, lines of someone said something, this phrase, this keyword. So it's time to walk through those notes and start putting them into littler buckets. And I like to call these little buckets themes. Now, we're looking for patterns because you're going to go through these sources. Remember, this is a third pass through all this stuff. And you're going to start seeing what's linked, what's grouped, what actually goes into each one of the little buckets, and start categorizing these little buckets into different chunks of your content. And what happens there is you'll notice is each theme that you start to create, you'll see that some themes are actually bigger themes, or some things can be broken into tinier themes. Each one has a snippet inside it. And I call those snippets topics, things to talk about with that high level thinking of the theme. You're going to find all the themes you can. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. You just group it the way you think it makes sense to you, and where it makes sense to your target audience, because you know who you're talking to. I don't, but you do. So is this hard work? Oh, you're damn right it is. This is very hard work, because patterns and themes take time. I'm talking 35 to 40 hours worth of sifting minimum, because what you're looking for is a pattern. You're looking for a pattern in the content that can help you tell the story. Because there is a beginning, middle, and end to every topic and every content, and every theme out there, and you won't see it until you see it. It's like looking at the sailboat at the mall through the garbage, and suddenly the sailboat just pops out at you. You will see it. You have to keep looking. But the goal now is okay, I have all these buckets, Kyle. What do I do next? Well, you have to take these buckets and take each one of these themes and make sure they at least have 4 topics each. And if they don't, they go to the back of the list. You're looking for the theme that have the most of your notes piled into them. You may have to break some of them up, but most likely you'll have a whole bunch. probably 20 or 30 different themes if you're doing a lot of this work. And then what you have to do is you start picking the stories that inspire you. Which one of these stories actually start that you want to talk about? And you're going to take one of these, and do they build on each other? Does one story have to come before the next story? Is there a sequence to these stories? Is there almost a theme within themes, kind of a meta theme for these stories? And you're going to pick 12, no more, no less. 13 is right out. 12. Now you're thinking, why 12? Well, 12 gets you every month of the year. So now what I've done is I've taken my buckets. In the left, I have my little chart here. You can make any chart you want, but I organize it this way in the chart. And I have the ones that are in focus, all the themes that kind of match my direction and perspective, right? Survival stories, escape disaster, wilderness survival. And I talk about all the things that stay in that theme. And I have a bunch of topics that I know are related, but kind of out of focus. Not really going to talk about these stuff, I'm talking about wilderness stuff, not jungles, etc. And I start listing those 12 on the right. And those are my 12 themes. And I have a whole bunch of topics for those 12 themes, different things to talk about. Now, each one of those themes has topics inside them. We're going to break those down next too. And the goal there is to come up with 4 topics per theme. You might start seeing a theme of my theme start to appear, because you find your 4 best topics, your 4 topics that build on each other, the 4 topics that you want to talk about, and you do this for each of your 12 themes. And what happens there? Well, if I take one theme and I break it into 4 chunks, that is now 1 month with 4 episodes, 1 for each week. I just built a month for the content based off this. And I could even go further. And on the right-hand side, I even went further to say, okay, what are my main points within that particular week's topic of this theme? And I've created a month's worth of content. Now, what you can do is the final step, the natural evolution of this process, which is fill in the blank. You're going to have to go and take your schedule and tell this story in the order that you think it has to go in. And what you're going to find is that there are 52 weeks in a year. 48 of those topics plug right into there. Well, what about the other 4? Well, you might have an introduction. You might be hot topics that pop up. Maybe some guy survives in the wilderness that you didn't know about surviving, and you can actually talk to him or talk about the story of him. There's holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Independence Day, all sorts of different topics that may be relevant to your content that you can talk about that's particular because it's that holiday, and you can play off that. Or you can find best of. Maybe there are some content that you have to go back to and explain more, or you got a lot of feedback from and you want to talk about some more. This is 1 year of content you just created. And all you did was keywords through your why statement to find out all the notes you can possibly take on this content of websites that exist out there. There are billions of websites. There's really hard not to find a topic that isn't talked about somewhere. Break that into 12 themes, break those 12 themes into 4 different topics per theme at 48 topics, which makes all your episodes. Why does this work? Because now you know what is coming next. Now you know where you are now. This is your map. Now you know where you're going. This is your compass. All you have to do now is walk the path and tell the story. That's it. Now you, on top of that, know how much work this will take. You're not surprised at episode 13 that, oh my God, podcasting is really hard. You know that 52 episodes is going to take you some time. But you have done the work before you ever turned on the microphone. And now you can do this without pod fading or pod wrecking. Thank you for your attention and happy hunting.